The Haunting of Vallecas, Spain's real-life conjuring. A case so disturbing, even police documented it. Madrid, 1992. A family in distress dials emergency services, not for an intruder, not for a fire, but for a ghost. When the officers arrive, they're skeptical, until they step inside. A crucifix rips off the wall, a heavy wardrobe creaks open on its own, and a cold, unseen force slithers past them like a breath from the abyss. That night, one of Spain's most respected police officers signed a document that still shocks readers to this day. An official police report confirming paranormal activity. In the beginning, there is a place where horror and reality meet. Folklore, superstition, or Hollywood exaggeration are typically what come to mind when we think about ghost stories. There are other possibilities. However, certain cases cannot be dismissed. The Vallecas case, which is sometimes referred to as the Estefania Gutierrez Lazaro haunting, continues to be one of the few paranormal investigations in Europe that is supported by a police record. The genuine officer, an authentic signature, truly terrifying. On the other hand, what actually took place inside that humble flat in Madrid during the years 1990 and 1992? It is necessary to return to the beginning in order to comprehend this terrible enigma. This is the time before the walls were scratched, before the apparitions appeared, and before the fateful cry. A teacher entered the room in the middle of the ceremony and shattered the Ouija board, causing its fragments to be dispersed. At that same point, it was reported that a peculiar occurrence occurred. A chilly breeze proceeded to blow through the room, the glass cup that had been utilized as a planchette broke, and Estefania became pale. Beginning from that particular day, Estefania started suffering frightening symptoms. It was waking visions that transformed into nightmares. Not only did she claim to have seen shadows at the foot of her bed, but she also claimed to have heard whispering and that she was being watched by something that was even inside her own home. Her parents dismissed it as the typical anxiousness that comes with being a teenager. It was not the case. The process had just started. The second part is titled Descent into Madness. By the week, Estefania's condition continued to deteriorate. It was common for her to experience violent seizures, foam at the mouth, and scream uncontrollably. She was evaluated by medical professionals, she had tests, and she was even admitted to the hospital. What is their verdict? A neurological disorder that cannot be described. A single terrifying occurrence jolted the family. They called to me from the corners, Estefania shared with her mother during a nighttime conversation. They want me to accompany them on their trip. After that, she fell to the ground and started snarling in a male voice shortly before she passed out and fell asleep. Concepcion, her mother, was concluding that this was not a medical condition. It was a demonic act. This is when Estefania began creating monster faces, which consisted of scribbled eyes, horns, and sceneries that were dreadful. There were several voices that she used. As time went on, she became more and more angry, even hitting her siblings in states that she could not recollect. An explanation was not provided for the doors that were slammed shut. Estefania's face was the only part of her body that was burned when a photograph of her sitting on a table caught fire. There was a reverberation of voices that were not embodied in the corridors. The furniture was relocated. There was a slithering motion of shadows down the walls. At night, the family dog would yelp and whine at things that were not visible to him. Then came the most terrible moment of all. In the year 1992, the family was jolted awake by a loud bang and a guttural growl that occurred during the night. Upon entering one of the chambers, they discovered a crucifix that had been torn from the wall, the metal of which had been twisted, and a nasty slime that was leaking from the walls. They made a call to the officer. This is the fourth part of the police report that shocked the entire nation. It was anticipated that there would be a domestic disturbance when Officer Jose Pedro Negri and 3 other law enforcement officers arrived. There was no one in the vicinity of the table when it moved several inches. An invisible force was seen slamming a door shut with such power that it shattered the wood. They witnessed this. Knocks and guttural sounds that could not be articulated were sounds that they heard. A cold, invisible hand gripped his neck, according to the testimony of one of the officers. The general public was not surprised by the allegations. Rather, they were taken aback by the fact that the police had documented everything in their report. In their own words in full, "We do not believe in anything." However, the things that we observed inside of that house cannot be spoken. The case became a media hurricane as a result of the official documents that was provided. A mixture of terror, curiosity, and disbelief engulfed Spain at the time. Theories, debunkers, and the lingering shadow are discussed in Part 5 of this series. The Vallecas haunting has become a case study in both the field of paranormal inquiry and the field of skeptical investigation in the decades that have passed since it occurred. Skeptics say the following: there is a possibility that Estefania experienced symptoms of temporal lobe epilepsy or schizophrenia that were not properly identified. An abrupt arrhythmia or an overdose could have been the cause of her death, but the testing did not detect either of these conditions. A shared psychological experience may have been the manifestation of the family's trauma, which may have been exaggerated to gain attention. The family may have been overcome with sadness. Nevertheless, believers point to the following: the police report, which was a rare instance in which law enforcement officials officially admitted to investigating unexplained phenomena. The photograph that was burned, which was seen by several different persons. There are textbook indicators of possession that may be found in exorcism literature. These signs include seizures, language alterations, and violent behavior. It has been said that her spirit persists. Many assert that something utilized her as a portal. Regardless of the reality, the flat located on Luis Marin Street in Vallecas was unfortunately abandoned at some point in time. Veronica and the cultural echo left behind as a legacy. Veronica is a horror film that was directed by Paco Plaza and released in 2017. The film was inspired by the Vallecas case. In spite of the fact that it is a work of fiction, it manages to convey the psychological and spiritual horror of what might have occurred. However, the story continues to be told. The apartment building continues to be frequented by tourists. There have been reports of ghost hunters detecting chilly patches on the third floor. In addition, Officer Negri's signature can still be found on the original police record, which was filed in Madrid and had a yellowed appearance. There is evidence, according to some people, that not all hauntings are made up. Conclusion: the ghost that made history. Was Estefania mentally ill, tragically misunderstood in a culture that feared the unseen? Or did she make contact with something dark that never let go? Today, the official police report is archived in Madrid. The original apartment still stands, its windows dark and its address whispered by ghost hunters and thrill seekers. But Estefania's story, like the shadow her family said still lingered, has never truly left, and perhaps it never will. If this story gave you chills, hit that like button, subscribe for more real horror tales, and let us know in the comments.